Turn up.
Hello everyone, this is Miss Davenport, and by now you should have guessed it, but our topic for today, in case you missed it, is photosynthesis. You should have heard your teacher mention this word before, and you may have actually heard it in some of your other classes. We just got done talking about food chains and energy transfer and those types of relationships, and we mentioned in the food chain that plants were producers or autotrophs because they made their own food. And photosynthesis is the process in which they do this. So we're going to break it down. But first, let's look at these root words. So photo means light. And synthesis means to produce or make something. So plants are using light to make or produce their own food because we all know that the sun does provide energy. Now this is where your notes actually comes in. If you want to make a note somewhere about photo and synthesis, what those root words mean, I would do that. It's to help you. But we're going to go ahead and talk about the formula. So that's that box you see in the top of your notes. So what do plants need for photosynthesis to happen? One thing they need is water. Okay, if you don't water a plant, it's not going to be able to make it. We all know this. If you go away on a long trip or something like that and you forget to water your plants when you come back, they're not going to look so good. H2O is another way that you may see water written. So sometimes on an exam, on homework, on an assignment, you may see water, you may see H2O. Those terms can be interchanged, and you do need to know both of those terms. But water is not the only thing that plants need. They also need a gas, and that gas is carbon dioxide, or CO2. So plants need to take this in addition to water so that they can make their own food. Now we also know that plants need sun because if plants are in the shade for a long time or you have plants inside and they're not near the sun, they're not going to make it either. And that's because the sun provides that energy for the reaction to take place. So we're going to actually place the sun over the arrow and not in the actual equation. That's what's going to allow our reaction to take place. So plants take in water and carbon dioxide, and what do they make? They make glucose. Glucose is a sugar, and that's what form of food the plants make. So that's how plants get their energy. They take it from the sun in water, carbon dioxide. They put those things together and end up with glucose, which is written as C6H12O6. And then you also have oxygen, which is released, or O2. So plants are kind of like the opposite of us, and this is how I kind of remember what happens, because sometimes it can get confusing with, do plants take in carbon dioxide, do they take in oxygen? It's the opposite of us. As humans, which are in the animal kingdom, we breathe in oxygen and we release carbon dioxide. Plants are the opposite. They have to take in that carbon dioxide and they release oxygen. This is why deforestation is such an issue. Trees are a plant, and therefore they release oxygen as a byproduct of photosynthesis. And when you go around cutting trees in excessive amounts, that's going to decrease the amount of oxygen that's available in the atmosphere and therefore increase carbon dioxide, which contributes to global warming. And we'll talk about that in more detail when we get to human impact, but just kind of throwing it out there. So the graphic organizer, we see our sun. First, I forgot to tell you. So on the left side of the equation where you have water and carbon dioxide, those are called your reactants. And then on the right side of the equation, what's made, those are your products. So you may see these terms used in a question, so make sure you write this down and you understand what a reactant is, what a product. A reactant is what is needed, a product is what is made. Now we can move on. So we see our sun looking all nice and happy. And what it's going to do is give light energy to that plant. And it's going to be absorbed by a green pigment called chlorophyll. And that's found in a part of the cell called the chloroplast. So photosynthesis happens in the leaves of plants inside an organelle, which is called a chloroplast. Okay? And chlorophyll is actually reflects green, and that's why plants look green to us. But that's not all they need. They don't just need light energy. They have other parts of the plant which are going to help. So we need water. You see our little water droplet down there. It's absorbed from the roots of the plant. and those are underground, so they're going to absorb the water. We got our light energy from the sun, but that's not all plants need. They need carbon dioxide, so that's absorbed through the atmosphere. And you can't always see this when you look at a leaf, but on the underside of the leaf, the side that's not quite as shiny or waxy, there are very, very tiny pores or openings called stomata. And that's how carbon dioxide is going to get into the leaf. Plants are not completely closed off. They do have these tiny openings, and hopefully you'll get a chance to look at those in your class during a lab. So those are things that are needed for photosynthesis. Notice the arrows are going into the leaf, not out of them. So now we're going to go up and talk about what's happening after all of these things come inside of the plant, what's leaving the plant or what's being produced. So food or chemical energy is produced in the form of glucose. We already said this is sugar. And glucose is a very simple carbohydrate. It's not complex. It's not like a whole bunch of sugar strained together. It's one little sugar. It's very simple. However, plants aren't just going to produce one molecule of glucose. That's not going to be enough energy to sustain them. So as they keep going through this process of photosynthesis, they're going to make more and more glucose, and then they're going to get what's called starch. And that's a complex carbohydrate. So anytime you're eating a plant, you're eating starch, because that's how that plant stores its energy. And these are found a lot in pastas and breads that you eat. It comes from wheat. And you also have our flour, and you also have potatoes. All of these things are very, very starchy. We also have oxygen, which is going to come out, and that's also released through those same pores, the stomata. So carbon dioxide comes in through those stomata, and oxygen goes out. And in the very bottom right corner, you see a picture, and these are kind of an artistic representation. But they do look kind of similar to this if you were to actually look at a real life leaf, and they're just really, really tiny. So the actual opening, singular, is called stoma. We said stomata because we were talking about multiple pores, but singular, since we're just pointing to one, is stoma. And around the stoma, or the stomata, are guard cells, and they control when those pores are open and when they're closed. As a plant, you're not always going to want to have those stomata open because you're not always going to be actively performing photosynthesis. An example of this is at night. You're not going to see the stomata as wide open as you are during the day. The sun's not out. It's not providing energy for that photosynthesis to take place and to happen. And just another reminder of what comes in and out of these. In comes carbon dioxide, and out comes oxygen. And there you have it. Photosynthesis, pretty simple and pretty broken down. Once again, water comes in, carbon dioxide comes in. Light energy comes from the sun to power this reaction and make it happen. And then you have glucose made, which is the plant's food, and then oxygen is released. Hopefully you have a better understanding of photosynthesis than you did before, and thank you for watching.
Yeah.